Hi there, it's me again, Audrina here with your next instalment from my debut novel, Where Did Your Heart Go? And I hope that the crashing of my pink t-shirt with the red wall behind it isn't too strident, but I have noticed that my hair is hardly standing out against the red, but never mind, that's just, you know, one of those things that happens. Anyway, we're here with chapter 58 today, so settle back, relax, and as always, hope you enjoy listening. Leaving their parents, Charlotte and Mitchell went back to their room. As they stood in the lift, Mitch pulled her close. "I just can't seem to keep my hands off you," he murmured. "Do you hear me complaining?" Charlotte replied, pushing her body even closer to his. "Tomorrow's going to be awful when we're not together," she said. "Well, let's live for today then," Mitch replied, kissing her gently on her upturned lips. They ran along the corridor and almost fell through the door of the room. Mitchell had Charlie in his arms before the door closed behind them, staggering and falling onto the bed together in a jumble of limbs. Their lips joined in a kiss so long and passionate it felt as though time was frozen. Charlotte lay back as Mitch gently peeled down the straps of her dress, revealing her naked breasts as her nipples sprang to attention under his touch. He worked his way down and pulled off her knickers, throwing them behind him. Charlie laughed for a second and then it changed to a gasp as his tongue went to work. Her hands ran through his hair as she arched under his touch and surrendered completely to the sensations racing through her body. She shuddered and came. Mitch paused and looked up at her, smiling before he continued again to bring her to the very pinnacle of pleasure. And he pulled away, aware that he was teasing, but enjoying it. Charlie undid the buttons on his shirt and threw them over her shoulder. Her hands fumbled at his belt buckle, but it came free and she pulled his trousers off. Mitch tried to pull her straight on top of him, but she pushed him back against the duvet. He felt her loose hair tickle his body as her lips travelled down to his cock. She paused and playfully ran down his thighs and up again, coming close, but not quite going for the target until she felt his hands trying to push her that way. Then she let her tongue play over the tip and felt him quiver with excitement. She played with him as if he was a lovely ice lolly to be savoured. He could take it no longer as he hoisted her up to capture her lips with his hands guiding her into position as she sank down on top of him. It was like a horizontal dance. Neither of them was in control as they flew together, soaring towards the peak of their passion before crashing down. "That was the best yet," Mitch gasped. "Wish we'd started earlier," Charlie whispered, kissing him tenderly on the lips. She snuggled into his arms as they started to cool down. Mitch leaned up and looked deep into Charlie's eyes. "I can't believe how in love I am with you," he said. "Neither can I," Charlie replied, fighting the tiredness that was trying to whisk her away from this precious moment. "Hold me and don't ever let me go," she said, reaching up to pull him close. "With pleasure," Mitch said. During the night, Charlie woke occasionally and in the moonlight turned and stared at the handsome man that lay next to her. She still wondered how they'd shared so much in common, especially the links with the past. She brushed a light kiss onto his lips before falling asleep again. The alarm woke them in the morning, their last morning together for a week. Still sleepy, they kissed and shared their bodies again before heading for the shower. "I wish we didn't live so far apart," she said. "I know, but who knows what might happen between our parents in the future?" "I'm keeping my fingers crossed for them," Charlie said. She held them up for him to see, and he grabbed them and kissed them lightly. "Don't start that, I think I'm a sex addict already," Charlie moaned as he reeled her in. "Just as long as it's with me," Mitch replied. Once dressed and packed, they went down for breakfast. They saw their parents sitting together on a table for four and decided they should join them. "Hi Mum, James," Charlie said, sitting down opposite her mum. "Morning Dad, Stephanie," Mitch said. They watched the two of them sitting next to each other, almost a mirror image of how James and I had looked all those years ago. While they went to choose some breakfast, I turned to him. "Do you think we should talk to them now?" Yes, it might be a good idea, he replied. Do you want to do it or shall I? I will, but feel free to butt in at any point. Once they sat down, I hesitated and felt James's hand on my knee beneath the table. So guys, I'm guessing you might be wondering what has happened between the two of us this weekend. Pausing, Charlotte and Mitchell looked up and stared across the table. We've had a long talk about things and have decided that it would be foolish for us to imagine that we could go straight back to how it was 24 years ago. I turned to James, who took my cue. Yes, so we're going to renew our friendship and see how things go over the next couple of weeks, he said, smiling back at me. Are you still going to come down for the Rock on the River event in a fortnight? Charlotte asked. Oh yes, I believe I'm driving the minibus. That's a point. Can you recommend anywhere for us to stay? James asked, turning to me. I'll ask around, but I believe the Premier Inn at the end of the M50 is fairly cheap and good. Once we all packed and settled up the hotel bills, we paused in the foyer. It's been lovely to see you again, Stephanie, Peter said, reaching out and pulling me into an embrace. I then turned to Pam, who didn't need to say any more as she hugged me. Then I stood looking at James, wondering what to do as I felt my body start to come alive. Bye, James, I said, as he pulled me into his embrace. Bye, Steph, he whispered into my ear, and in passing he brushed my cheek with a light kiss. Charlie and Mitch disappeared outside, so we followed suit and headed towards the cars. We found them at the side of the one car, both so wrapped up in each other that they didn't notice us until we blipped the cars open. They sprang apart, but then Mitch pulled Charlie back against his body. Ready to go? I asked. I could see tears starting to sparkle in Charlie's eyes. She nodded and reached up for a final kiss from Mitchell, who looked just as distraught at letting her go. As Chris drove off, they followed us for some of the journey out of London. Then, due to the traffic, the tiny convoy was separated. Charlie stared out of the window, her earphones transporting her to another time and place. I could just make out that she was listening to Dirty Dancing soundtrack, and an occasional tear would slip down her cheek, which she wiped away with a soggy piece of tissue. I reached out and squeezed her shoulder. She turned to me, a knowing look on her face, acknowledging that I understand exactly how she felt. I was glad to reach home after such an emotional roller coaster of a weekend. Pulling our bags out of the car, we carried them in. Do you want to stay for a bite to eat? I asked Sarah and Chris. Thanks, but we'll head home if that's okay, Sarah said. Okay, and thanks for driving us, Chris, I said, stepping into his strong arms to hug him tight. I warned him not to hurt you again, or he'll have me to deal with, Chris whispered in my ear. Thanks, Chris, that means a lot. We waved them off and then walked inside to a flashing answer phone filled with junk calls. What do you fancy for tea? I asked. Can we just get some chips, Mum? I'm not very hungry. Okay, we'll walk and get them. Sure, Mum, she said. With her phone tucked into her pocket, I grabbed my handbag and closed the house again. Arm in arm, we walked into town in the early evening sunlight. You can talk to me, Mum. I am old enough to understand, Charlie said. Thanks, Charlie. My thoughts are in a little bit of a muddle right now. But you look so good together. Perfect. James is so nice. I wouldn't hate him being my stepdad. I think I'd quite like it, she said, and I smiled at the sentiment. We'll have to wait and see. And that's where I'm going to leave you this time. Poised and waiting for the next instalment, I hope. Don't forget, if you do want to read ahead, you can go and grab your paperback copy, available on Amazon, or you can get the ebook, which is also there. Quite cheap, the ebook, only 99p or 99 cents, so I'm not actually going to be a very rich writer for a long while at that price, but never mind. I like to give you something to get into. And don't forget, if you've enjoyed listening to this, pop a comment on my YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and feel free to message me. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, and I'd be happy to friend request you. Always like chatting to my fans. and I will look forward to seeing you all again and boring you, or not, let's hope it's not the boring, with my next chapter in this. Anyway, take care for now, whatever you're doing, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.